Trump called a secret meeting with generals at the White House after rejecting the response sent by Iran to the United States' demands regarding the nuclear program. This Tuesday, May 12, 2026, the meeting gained significance because it didn't just bring together military personnel. It brought J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff together for an urgent decision about Tehran. Possible limited strikes against Iranian targets and the strong message sent by an American nuclear submarine appearing in Gibraltar. The panic began when Tehran, the anti-Trump media, and the pro-Iran allies realized that Trump wasn't just making threats. He was gathering the core of the US military to prepare the next step against the Iranian dictatorship. I'll tell you all about it in a moment. But now you'll want to be subscribed to the channel to stay well informed. Real-time information with the best journalistic quality you've ever seen. Milson Alves, the standard for credibility. The meeting took place at the White House's decision-making center because the Iranian response did not meet what Washington demanded. The presence of J.D. Vance, Rubio, Hegseth, Ratcliffe, and Duncan shows that the meeting was not an ordinary government conversation. Vance represents the political core of the White House. Rubio leads the diplomatic front. Hegseth and Ratcliffe speak for the Pentagon. Ratcliffe brings the intelligence assessment. And Duncan represents the military chain of command. The possibility of limited strikes became the focus of the crisis. According to information cited in international news, Trump was considering a calibrated military action to pressure Tehran into accepting tougher terms in the nuclear talks. The idea was not to announce a full-scale war, but to strike selected targets and raise the cost of Iranian resistance. And to make it clear that the White House would accept a proposal full of demands against the United States as long as the nuclear program continued to pose a threat. The American ballistic missile submarine in Gibraltar added a quiet sense of pressure to the meeting. The United States Navy confirmed that an Ohio-class submarine arrived in the British territory on May 10, 2026. The Navy's own statement said that this type of submarine is an almost undetectable launch platform and one of the most resilient parts of the American nuclear triad. The public presence in Gibraltar in the midst of the crisis showed capability, flexibility, and commitment to NATO allies. Tehran responded by trying to demonstrate strength. The president of the Iranian parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, stated that Iran's armed forces were ready to respond to any aggression and that adversaries would be taught a lesson. The threat came right after Trump rejected the Iranian proposal, which shows that the regime understood the magnitude of the risk. Iran usually uses tough rhetoric to shore up its domestic base. Reuters reported that an Iranian parliamentary spokesperson warned that Iran could enrich uranium to weapons-grade levels if attacked again. This threat made the White House meeting more serious, as Washington does not see this as a typical dispute. That's when panic began in the anti-Trump media circles, which tried to present the crisis as a trap or a lack of control by the White House. While outlets linked to the pro-Iran camp repeated that Trump's rejection didn't matter, the pro-Iran media tried to turn the American rejection into political pride, saying that no one in Tehran was making plans to satisfy Trump. But that statement actually reveals the fear of appearing defeated in front of their own people. At the same time, international outlets critical of the American president began to highlight the risk of escalation, diplomatic failure, and economic threat. Because the meeting with the generals showed that Trump wasn't just using tough words. One of them is shortening the space for war, a maneuver by the regime. Either Tehran agrees to tougher terms or it will have to deal with naval escorts, harsher sanctions, and the possibility of targeted attacks. The panic started when it became clear that American pressure moved from rhetoric to the center of military decision-making. Now, what happens next depends on Tehran's choice. If Iran insists on its maximum demands, threatens to enrich uranium at a more dangerous level, and keeps up the pressure on Hormuz, the White House may move toward more aggressive naval escort, additional sanctions, or limited strikes. In the history of the United States, closed-door meetings during moments of nuclear threat often precede decisions that change the course of the crisis. In October 1962, John Kennedy gathered his top advisors during the Cuban Missile Crisis after the United States discovered Soviet installations near Florida. The options discussed included airstrike, invasion, and naval quarantine. Kennedy chose to surround Cuba with ships, prevent the arrival of more Soviet military supplies, and demand the removal of the missiles. The Soviet Union tried to show strength, but eventually backed down under American pressure, removing the missiles from Cuba and avoiding a direct confrontation. The episode came to be seen as a strategic victory for the United States because Washington showed firmness, contained Moscow near its territory, and forced the adversary to back down, without having to turn the crisis into open war. When Washington brings together the president, the military, and intelligence in the face of a nuclear threat, the conversation isn't for show. It's preparation to force the adversary to choose between backing down and confrontation. From now on, three options remain on the table. The first is tough negotiation, with Iran accepting real limits on its nuclear program and a reduction in maritime tensions. The second is a more robust naval escort, with the American Navy ensuring the passage of commercial vessels and reducing Iran's power to intimidate. The third is a selective strike, used if Trump concludes that Tehran has rejected the pressure and decided to continue escalating. None of these paths is simple, but they all show that the secret meeting was not an empty gesture. The most sensitive point for Iran is that Trump took the crisis out of the arena where Tehran usually feels comfortable. The regime likes long statements, proposals full of demands, indirect threats, and control over timing. For a dictatorship that depends on the appearance of strength, being forced to measure every step in front of the American generals is already a political blow. The next move could come through diplomacy, by sea, or through a limited military action. Tehran knows that any mistake could speed up the American response. U.S. allies are following the crisis because they need open routes, stable energy, and nuclear containment. And the anti-Trump media tries to downplay the importance of the meeting because they understand the political effect of the encounter. Trump appeared to be leading the crisis, not running away from it. From here on, Iran is not just facing a demand on paper, it's facing a decision prepared at the center of American power. I'm Milson Alves, an international affairs specialist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.